Football happy hour continuing. We're talking about Pete Prisco's top 100 free agents. Here's the top running backs that Pete has on the list, and it's headed off by Aaron Jones, the Green Bay running back, over 1,100 yards for the Packers. Fourth best in the NFL. Kenyon Drake in there with the Cardinals, ranked number 50 overall. Carson appeared in a baker's dozen games for Seattle. In the playoffs, he had his second best game of the season, rushing for 77 yards in that loss against the Rams. And Pete Prisco, Danny Kanell breaking down the top free agents as Pete has them ranked in the top 100. We start with Aaron Jones, topping the list of running backs for you, Pete. Miami's been rumored to possibly be a landing spot for Jones. Do you see the Packers trying to hang on to him, or do you see him making the move to South Florida?
If I were the Packers, I'd do everything I could to hang on to him. I mean, I wouldn't go nuts because you guys know how I feel about running back contracts and second contracts, but he's so different and so valuable to what they do on offense because he is like a pass catcher when you line him up wide and get him out of the backfield, and he's become a very good receiver out of the backfield. So I think Green Bay would be the best option for him in terms of going back to his old team. From a money standpoint, get what you can, and Miami could be in play. The Dolphins, would love to get a nice feature back in their offense. He'd be perfect for what they want to do. But again, I'm a draft and develop guy when it comes to the running back position, but I think Green Bay would be the best option for him.
Yeah, I think so too. He's a phenomenal running back. Out of all backs in NFL history with at least 650 carries, Aaron Jones ranks 6th with a 5.17 yard average. I mean, he's phenomenal, and he's meant so much to that team and really provide an explosive weapon for Aaron Rodgers to work with. The issue is, and this is where I totally agree with Pete, I would not pay many of these backs. I just don't know if there's a back in there that truly is somebody who you would say, all right, we're going to build our franchise around this player. It's just not the way the game is moving. It's moving towards quarterbacks and wide receivers or versatile backs. That's the one advantage Aaron Jones has, and Pete alluded to it, the fact that he can come out of the backfield, the fact that he can catch passes out of there. But you also wonder how much of that is because he's playing with one of the better quarterbacks in the game that we've ever seen. So if I'm the Packers, yeah, I would explore the possibilities of keeping him around, but I would by no means get in a position of desperation where you're thinking we have to have him here. So for that reason, I think Aaron Jones might be somewhere else this coming season.
And to Pete's point, the draft and develop, Jones is certainly a guy that did that, came out early from UTEP and found his way to Green Bay, where he has become one of the best in the league. Let's talk about Kenyon Drake. Appeared in 15 games last season, all on the transition tag. And Pete, you say they would love to have him back again, but at the right price. So, Danny, I'll throw this to you. What is the market for Drake?
He's going to be a back that some teams are going to come sniffing around on, but I think a lot of this determines on what does Arizona picture him, what role, how much did they enjoy having him around there. But again, I think most of these backs, I would not want to pay some of these exorbitant contracts. You've got the example of Le'Veon Bell. You've got the example of Todd Gurley. There have been so many running back contracts that you look at in hindsight. Not a lot of some of us, I think Pete included, would say those are nuts to give out those types of contracts. And yeah, you're not going to have to break the bank here with Kenyon Drake, but to lock these guys up with this much wear and tear on their legs, on their bodies, I don't think is very smart. So I do think there'll be a market for Kenyon Drake, and somebody else probably will be willing to pay the money that Arizona won't.
Yeah, and all the Cardinals have to do is look at David Johnson's contract. Remember, when David Johnson's contract happened, everybody said, oh, they're getting a good deal on him. It ended up being an albatross, and they had to get rid of him, and they ended up getting DeAndre Hopkins for him. So I don't think you give Drake a big contract. You look at his numbers. He's gone down yards per carry, and I always look at the yards per carry number from 5.2 a year ago to 4.0 last year. That's a big difference, and that's always concerning when you see that happen to an aging back. And I sit here and I say aging back, he's only entering his 7th year, but that's aging for a running back. You draft him, you run him into the ground, and you draft another one.
Well, and Kenyon Drake, number 50 on Pete's list of the top free agent running backs. Aaron Jones, the only one that's inside of the top 50. At number 55 is where Carson is. Had a lot of hype going into last season, but never hit over 80 yards in a game. His running style means he's going to get banged up. Do you see him staying in Seattle here, Pete, or is this a guy who'd be a good fit somewhere else?
I think he'd be perfect to go back to Seattle. They know what they have in him. He's had success there. The offensive line hasn't helped him much in Seattle. He's a grinder. They want to grind. The reason Russell Wilson isn't happy is because they want to run the ball more. So if you're Chris Carson, you look at that scenario, you say, hey, look at this backfield. I'm the guy. I will be the guy, and I should go back there. And I think ultimately he does go back to Seattle. Power back, physical guy. There might be a team looking for a physical back. Maybe Pittsburgh would be a potential place, but they have cap issues. So I think he goes back to Seattle.
Yeah, I think he's a perfect fit for what they're doing. He's probably one of the more underrated players in the NFL when you think about the attention that Russell Wilson gets because of what they do offensively and how much he gets. But over the last 3 years, Carson's rushed for over 3,000 yards. He's averaged 4.6 yards per carry, but he's also caught 94 passes, and he scored 27 touchdowns. Like, he has been a massive producer. And you mentioned, Jeremy, the fact that he gets hit a lot, but he does average 2.8 yards after contact. So yes, he takes a beating, but he does fall forward and get you those extra yards, even though they come very physically at times. So I think Seattle is the right fit for him, especially if you're going to bring back Russell Wilson and do more of the same, even though that's not what Wilson wants to see. But I think Carson could demonstrate you could open it up a little bit more with him too, showing the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Sitting at number 76 on Pete Prisco's list, James White, who's made a living on third down in New England, and he's hitting the market for the first time, which is shocking. And when I read that, I was shocked that he's only hitting it for the first time. And with the other pressing matters for the Patriots, there is an expectation here, Pete, that he's going to leave. An early team being mentioned, possibly Jacksonville. What do you see happening with White here?
Yeah, I think teams that are looking for a third down back should hone in on James White. He's a productive player. He's been that way for a long time. He's a guy you can get him out of the backfield. When New England wanted to play fast and furious back in the day with Tom Brady and they wanted to throw it around, James White was on the field. He's never been a real dynamic runner in between the tackles, although he can do it. I think he's, his real strength is being able to come out of the backfield and catch the football. Tampa Bay is probably going to lose playoff Leonard Fournette. He's probably gone. So why not look at a guy like James White as your third down back? Bring him in there. He knows Tom Brady. Make it New England South. Brady, James White, Rob Gronkowski. He would help that offense.
Well, it's all but a certainty that James Conner won't be back in Pittsburgh, given their cap situation. Pete, you just alluded to it. Conner, a great local story in Pennsylvania, but really didn't do much for the Steelers in the run game last season. Perhaps a change of scenery will help reinvigorate him. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it could. I mean, the Steelers were clearly pretty one-sided. I mean, they kind of abandoned the run game and just relied on Ben Roethlisberger to throw the football almost exclusively through the air. I still think James Conner, not only is he a good story off the field, overcoming his battle with cancer, played right there at Pitt where they practiced the same place as the Steelers, but I think he's a solid back. Like, he's one of these players where you know exactly what you're going to get. He's physical. He breaks a lot of tackles. In fact, he's one of the better guys coming out that actually in this free agent class will break tackles and break people's ankles in the open field. So I would love to see him land somewhere where he gets an opportunity to shine a little bit more and a little bit more of a balanced attack.
All right, we've got about a minute and a half left. Lastly, playoff Leonard Fournette, the penultimate man on Pete Prisco's top 100 free agents. He won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers after being resigned to the scrap heap in Jacksonville. Pete, you think there's a market for Leonard Fournette, do you?
No, not a big one. I do think that playoff Lenny was different than what we saw during the regular season. That was a different guy. You never saw that guy, even in Jacksonville, when he had success running the football. He was elusive at times. He would bounce outside and make plays. He did it in the Super Bowl. He did it against Green Bay. Where has that guy been? So maybe he flicked the switch, the maturity switch, and he's grown up a little bit, and somebody can get him on like a 2-year deal, 1-year deal, and bring him in and help their running game. I don't think he's a lead back in terms of being the only back, but he's a nice complementary piece in your backfield.
You know where we saw that guy, Pete? LSU. That was the last time we saw that type of runner. Maybe a little bit in Jacksonville, but I do worry that maybe the playoff Lenny that we saw was aware of what was at stake, that he was going to actually be up and have an opportunity to see another payday. And that makes me nervous. When you give him the contract, when you give him the guaranteed money, are you going to get that performance 16 games a year? I don't know if I would trust Leonard Fournette with that type of deal. So if you get a shorter term like you're talking about, maybe get some, something with a lot of incentives in there, I would take the risk. But other than that, I would probably steer clear of Leonard Fournette.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.